the people said no.
Voters have rejected the proposed amendment on Oireachtas inquiries.
They were not willing to give politicians additional powers to conduct inquiries. 16 months later, and the Public Expenditure Minister Brendan Howlin will shortly publish legislation setting out the kind of inquiries the Oireachtas can conduct. We understand the legislation provides for 5 separate kinds of inquiry: to inquire, record and report, a fact-finding inquiry, an inquiry into a legislative function, an inquiry into how a past event might be relevant to future policy, an inquiry relating to the removal of certain office holders, an inquiry into the conduct of an Oireachtas member, and an inquiry to hold a sitting government to account.
The Dáil remains in many ways one of the only parliaments in the modern democratic world which doesn't have the power to inquire into fact. And if we are serious about the Oireachtas holding the government to account, we need a functioning system of inquiries. So it seems to me that this new attempt to do just that is a significant step in the right direction.
The government parties want an inquiry into how the €440 billion bank guarantee was decided in September 2008. Last year, the Public Accounts Committee made its own proposal for such an inquiry, but the legislation contains a delicate legal distinction. Members of the PAC were told it would not allow an inquiry to hold a past government to account.
That will be a huge pitfall for any committee, because all of the intelligence, all of the activity around the bank guarantee was conducted by civil servants and by politicians and bankers in the course of the end of the last administration.
However, the Week in Politics has been told there is nothing to prevent previous cabinet members and civil servants from that period being called to give evidence about facts. The difference is that an inquiry committee would not be able to apportion blame or damage reputations. The proposed legislation is the first attempt to provide legal clarity on the scope of inquiries open to the Oireachtas. The issue is the extent to which the fact-finding format will facilitate an inquiry into the banking guarantee.
How you do that, I think, could be difficult in the context of the run-up to the guarantee, because you're not just looking at the members of the government who made the decision to guarantee the banks, but also the information they had from leading figures in banks and leading civil servants. So there is some scope for an inquiry, but I think it does have challenges and limitations.
When it comes to inquiries, we have form. There's a long line of people who have gone to the courts challenging the procedures, rulings and even findings of various inquiries. And that's inquiries headed by judges and legal professionals.
I think there are particular challenges for fair procedures in a political context, to avoid political grandstanding or the kind of things that could happen in that sort of a situation. So I think the legislation probably would have to address that up front, as it were.
The other provisions of the bill include legal safeguards to protect individual rights, power to compel witnesses to attend and produce documents, a provision to lift restrictions on civil servants and allow them reveal advices they gave to a minister. Significantly, any politician taking part in an inquiry will be legally required to avoid any perception of bias. The recent Leveson inquiry in Britain saw the rich and the powerful subject to robust questioning without recourse to the courts to challenge the proceedings.
I think it's a cultural thing, really, because, you look at any of the inquiries in the recent past in England, they don't seem to have had quite the degree of difficulties in terms of litigation than Irish inquiries have had. In Ireland, we have a written constitution. People are very cognizant of their rights under the constitution and are not slow to invoke them.
And that's the nub of any banking inquiry. Will witnesses voluntarily cooperate, or will it become yet another legal battlefield?